In American society, money is a taboo topic. We're taught at a young age it's improper to talk about it, but we're also bombarded with messages about the power and importance of money in our everyday lives. And by not talking about it, we miss out on the skills and lessons we need to effectively understand and financially plan. That changes today. Welcome to Money Tales. Hosted by Sandy Brager and Cami Doder, Money Tales brings more than 35 years of combined professional experience in personal finance to demystify money and demonstrate what it's like to speak openly about personal financial matters. Join us each episode as they interview modern-day movers and shakers about how money decisions intertwine with their daily lives in order to give you better insight into productive financial conversations. Subscribe today and register for our blog Fathom at aspiriant.com/podcasts to increase your money mojo. And now, here's Cami and Sandy.
What do flying Navy helicopters in the Philippines, founding an investment company, and steering unmanned ocean drones have in common? They're all part of one woman's incredible journey. Welcome to the Money Tales podcast, where we break through society's money taboos to have conversations that truly matter. Today's guest, Julie Kane, takes us on a remarkable journey from Navy pilot to entrepreneur to startup mission manager. She reveals how the absence of money talk in Julie's childhood led to some of her most powerful financial discoveries as an adult. Let me tell you more about Julie. After 20 years in financial services, in 2020, Julie became the CEO and co-founder of Democracy Investments, a registered investment advisory firm focused on promoting democracy in international markets. The firm serves as the advisor to the Democracy International Fund, an ETF listed on the New York Stock Exchange. In 2025, Julie took an additional role of mission manager at Saildrone, a startup that designs and deploys autonomous surface vehicles to be the eyes and ears for both maritime safety and freedom on oceans across the world. Julie grew up sailing, racing both dinghies and large yachts, and has enjoyed bringing this expertise along with her naval operations background to the day-to-day mission management of Saildrones for domestic and international customers.
Here are 3 key money topics Julie hits on in this conversation. First, silence around money can lead to unexpected independence. Julie's family didn't talk about money when she was growing up. While this created a knowledge gap that she filled later in life, it did spark her fierce independence. This led Julie to choose a full ROTC scholarship, not out of financial necessity, but from a desire to forge her own path. Second, equal pay equals peace of mind. Julie discovered that the military's transparent equal pay structure eliminated financial anxiety and workplace politics around compensation. Looking back, she appreciates not having to worry about that. And third, money conversations can evolve across generations. Unlike her parents' approach, Julie openly discusses money with her daughters when topics naturally arise. This shift demonstrates how each generation can consciously choose to break cycles and create healthy financial dialogue. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Julie Kane's Money Tales.
Welcome to the Money Tales podcast. I'm Cami Doder.
And I'm Sandy Brager.
Sandy, that was an incredible event we were able to participate in last night. Shelley Archambault, one of our past guests, her Ignite Ambition group, we were able to present and really discuss with one of their cohorts, and it was incredible.
Shelley mentors folks through Ignite Ambition, and she invited us to facilitate this conversation about telling your money story and how it helps play into your career ambition. There were maybe 8 participants from around the globe. One participant got up early in Dubai to join us, which was pretty amazing. Everybody was really participating. A couple folks even shared their money stories, which was really a thrill for me.
I agree. And I was inspired by the sharing with a group of people that don't necessarily know each other well. They got vulnerable easily. I was so impressed.
They did. Even in that relatively short conversation, they were able to share some insights and some ideas for how they were going to look at money differently for themselves or incorporate new habits around personal finance to make their financial lives flow better, which really delighted me.
Once again, telling your money story, it was so powerful to be able to elicit some of their stories and then even do some real life healing as people were talking about things that were holding them back. It was incredible.
I loved it.
I did too.
Thank you to Shelly and her team for having us on. That was a real thrill.
Well, it's my pleasure to turn our conversation to our guest today. Welcome to the Money Tales podcast, Julie Kane.
Thank you, Cami. Thanks for having me.
Julie's a friend of mine. For those listeners out there, we've known each other a long time, so this will be fun for me to dive into her money story. Julie, would you briefly introduce yourself and share a couple pivotal moments that have taken place in your life that really impacted who you are today?
My first pivotal experience was joining the Navy during college. I went to an all-girls high school on the East Coast and then suddenly was doing ROTC at the University of Virginia. And I joined the racing team and eventually was the captain of the sailing team at UVA. And I was able to race with the Naval Academy during the summer. I'm realizing now that experience growing up sailing, joining the Navy at a young age has really shaped who I am. And it'll make more sense when I tell you my current experience. So at a young age, I was flying helicopters in the Philippines, taking the Navy SEALs around, taking dignitaries from A to B, not sure who they were, et cetera. So a lot of responsibility. And when I wasn't flying, I was managing the missions and doing operations. The second pivotal experience, I would say, was 5 years ago. I founded a company with two partners called Democracy Investments. So I went from defending democracy in the Navy to defending democracy in international markets with a strategy that shifts international investments towards democracies and away from authoritarians using the Economist Democracy Index. The fund is over 4 years old now, ticker symbol DMCY. That has been probably the most pivotal money experience as well, becoming an entrepreneur later in life. But more recently, full circle, my current experience, which is bringing back everything to bear from my youth, is I am now a mission manager at a startup called Saildrone. And Saildrone is an unmanned surface vehicle. It is wind and solar powered, headquartered in Alameda Bay Area. Saildrone is the eyes and ears of democracy on international waters all over the world. It has cameras to track activity above the water, and it has sonar listening below. And my day-to-day job, it's very similar to what I did in the Navy, as in managing the missions, telling the pilots who are steering these vehicles where to be when, keeping track of weather, logistics, et cetera. I've really gone full circle in terms of bringing my youth to my current day-to-day excitement. And now I'm part of a 300-person startup that's doing amazing things around the world.
Wow, Julie, that is incredible. I see the through line, but you have gone full circle. Tell us a little bit about your backstory. When you were growing up, how did you learn about money?
My dad was an immigrant from Germany. He also did ROTC and joined the Navy. My mom was an Air Force brat and lived in Turkey, and her father was a POW and retired as a colonel. So I remember my dad saying, "We will not talk about money at the dinner table. Change the subject. You can't talk about current events."
Why would he not?
I think because he was Depression era. The other thing, we couldn't leave the table until our plates were clean. In his mind, because his family, before they left Germany, was quite well off, to go from that to a very humble existence in New York was tough for the family culturally. So I think that was just inbred in him. I remember playing Monopoly and like, oh, the more you buy, the more you do well later in life. So I think I learned it on my own. I don't remember any adults talking about money with me in my youth.
Did you take away any messages from that, Julie?
More that money is sort of a byproduct of how you live your life. I've watched over the years people who work to live versus live to work. In my mind, if you do what you love, money is a currency that just enables you to do what's important to you. I personally am all wired about having impact. I'd rather leave a legacy of impact than a legacy of a lot of money. And then to fast forward, well, Cami and I were at Anderson, and there I learned details about markets and economy, et cetera. But I also watched, and I thought it was so interesting that our business school attracted more entrepreneurs and people who wanted to have impact versus the other business schools that were attracting investment bankers. And those schools weren't as team oriented. And our business school was this wonderful group of people. Every class was teamwork. You got your grades with a team, not as an individual. I learned a lot about the culture of money from that experience. And then I spent quite a few years at Wells Fargo Bank. But interestingly, when I was in the private bank, we had a whole separate group that was advising high net worth families on how to help their kids stay on track. And I watched that saying, wow, you have all this wealth and yet you're not happy and you're worried about your kids. It's almost too much to manage in terms of be careful what you wish for. Be smart about how you take care of your finances and planning for the long term, et cetera. And there's kind of a happy medium. But I did not learn it in my youth. I think I learned it later in life. And I just got very lucky that I was on scholarship at University of Virginia and had my first Navy Federal Credit Union credit card. My little monthly stipend went in, and I never had money as in the top 10 things I worry about.
When you were in college and you were on scholarship, you decided to join ROTC. How are you thinking about money at that point in time? Because with ROTC, I'm not as familiar with it as you, but you're trading your time and effort for assistance with your education.
So it's a full scholarship and a little monthly stipend to pay for uniforms, et cetera. My parents, they actually were worried. They're like, you're going to go from an all-girls high school. We'll pay for college. You don't have to do this. But I wanted to be independent. It wasn't a money-driven choice.
Why did you want to be independent?
It was just the way I was wired. I was like, I want to do something different. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to do something exciting. I was the kid who would ride my little banana bike down hills that were meant for dirt bikes.
And I bet you didn't have a helmet on.
Without a helmet, exactly. So I've climbed trees and that sort of thing. So I've always been an adventure seeker. And when I got to college, I also joined a sorority.
Oh my gosh, how did you do that all? That's a lot of pressure in your time.
Oh, I loved every minute. It was super fun.
After school, when you joined the Navy, tell us about that money experience, because we know from other guests, when you're part of the military, you don't really have to think about money very much.
Looking back and having been in corporate environments later in life, one great thing about the military is everybody gets the same salary and get promoted at the same time. You go up the ladder with your cohort if you don't mess anything up, and you know what you're going to make and you don't have to worry about it. And it's not like you have to politic or wondering, am I making half what that person's making? It's very straightforward. Everyone's in the same uniform, and the Navy made no effort to educate us on savings or planning for retirement or anything like that. But I am grateful for that stability, and it gave me a high tolerance for ambiguity and a high tolerance for handling high stress situations. It makes my daughters crazy because it's something really bad keeps going on, and I get incredibly calm. Nobody's going to die here. We can just slow down and think things through. And that's what I love about my current job too. There's no person on it. I don't have to worry about it. For nothing. Unlike when I was carrying around 12 SEALs in the back of my aircraft.
It's incredible for me to hear about even just riding your banana bike down a dirt road and screaming down that, now becoming a helicopter pilot and big responsibilities. It gets my brain thinking about risk. How do you think about risk? How do you evaluate risk? And then how do you think about it with money?
I am probably not the normal person in terms of risk evaluation. I enjoy a certain amount of risk if it's a safe adventure, mountain biking, or now I love trail running. The risk is I'll sprain my ankle. I think I evaluate it on a case-by-case basis. One reason we founded Democracy Investments is we believed authoritarians are much more risky. And why would you want the international portion of your portfolio in authoritarian countries, which when you're invested in authoritarians, you're helping their economies grow. So why not encourage countries to become more democratic by shifting capital towards democracies, which are much less risky? You need to look at not just the sector that you're investing in, but also where the company's doing business, where most of the sales and operations happening.
Julie, tell us about starting Democracy Investments. That does sound like a really big move from your past history up until that point. What caused you to take that risk of being an entrepreneur with a big idea?
It'll be 5 years. This July 4th is when we formed the company.
You formed it on July 4th.
Yes, we did.
I love that.
That is awesome.
And it was during COVID. And this was before everything was in the news about China. But I had been watching through my networks the increasing investments in China, also the negative things that were happening in that country. It was getting a little restless in my banking world and wanting to do something different. And I was brainstorming with my two partners when we came up with the idea. Originally, we were going to look at doing something really active. Let's just take out all the stocks that are tied to authoritarians. And then we realized that would be really labor intensive and really hard to track. And we realized, why don't we just do a passive index fund where we merge two indices? So we start with a regular basket of international stocks in developed and emerging markets, then look at each security's country of risk, apply the country democracy score based on this democracy index, and that reweights the portfolio. So you're overweighted in democracies and underweighted in authoritarians. And we decided to keep it super simple with a belief that democracies are less risky and will outperform over the long run. Interestingly, today, our thesis still holds with tariffs are likely to be applied to authoritarians. Democracies are less likely to be in a prolonged conflict. International is much cheaper than the S&P 500. We've gotten some great feedback. It was quite the adventure, though. And being an entrepreneur later in life, I learned to be very scrappy. Cami and I are at a lot of conferences together. And
What's your biggest lesson that you want to share with someone maybe who's becoming an entrepreneur that you're surprised by? I never expected this to happen as an entrepreneur.
One of the best things that happened was the incredible amount of support from my current friends and family above and beyond, and then new people that I met in the industry that were amazing support out of the blue. How are you doing? How's it going? Hang in there. It's going to be hard. And this is way harder than I thought. And then a year later, you're doing great. Hang in there. So I have to say that the unexpected support almost brings me to tears. It was just incredible to find so many wonderful people in the industry that wanted to see. Let's stop also supporting all the big brands out there. Why does it always have to be BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street? Let's support some boutique and new ideas.
Julie, I'm curious about the impact of being an entrepreneur on your personal finances and how you think about them. Did that move cause you to shift how you were handling personal finances at home?
It sure did. Originally, my daughters had credit cards for me. I kind of do a deep dive at tax season to say, okay, let's look at everything. And I ended up printing out one of my daughters. David to say, look how much you spent at Starbucks. We have a perfectly good sheet here. I was like, because when you add it up for the year, like, oh, wow, okay, that makes sense. I became much more focused on little things like that when looking at where our spending was going once, and more thrifty with using miles, using points, finding deals, signing up early for things, because the earlier you sign up for conferences and get your travel booked, it can be like half the price if you wait till the month before. So really planning ahead. My family has been incredibly supportive, and they understood, okay, mom's an entrepreneur and this Christmas isn't going to be like last Christmas. And I had unexpected tremendous support from my whole support system. So it kind of seems minor in the scheme of things. I think I have more appreciation for being part of a mid-sized organization where everybody's working elbow to elbow towards the same vision.
I have to ask, Julie. So you grew up with a dad who's like, we're not talking about money at the dinner table. Did you talk about money at the dinner table with your girls?
If it came up, I wouldn't put it on the agenda. Both my girls are very hard workers, and they both have jobs and understand, and they're saving, and they are way more aware than I was at their age of all things money related. And they know how to find deals. They go thrift shopping, and I'm not worried about them at all. Now, me, on the other hand, having not been disciplined about it, I probably have more work to do in that department.
Maybe you don't have to. It's Sail Drone. That sounds really exciting. It sounds like a really huge impact mission. How are you thinking about money there, being part of a startup? That's a very different situation when you're part of a startup that you didn't create yourself.
And I'm in a role that interacts with pretty much all different parts of the organization. What can we do when? How do we fix it? If it needs to be fixed, et cetera. we're all in startup mode and everyone has skin in the game with equity and everyone sees the vision of how it can grow and have impact to maritime safety and awareness around the world. Getting out of bed to do that every day, I feel that we're all really lucky to be doing such exciting work. And there's never a dull day. It's been super exciting. And to have both military and international customers adds to that excitement.
Comes back full circle to what you talk about when money's a byproduct of how you live your life. You're really focused on this mission or this vision of this corporate, and you really believe in it. To you, it sounds like if you believe in it, money will flow. It'll figure itself out. And now just being able to focus on something you're passionate about, it just sounds incredible. And I bet that feeling is very freeing.
It is. And my first job out of the military was in finance. So I went to this speed dating thing and SEI Investments hired me into their headquarters and they gave me equity. I was like, what's this? What are these stock options? I've never heard of this. Well, fast forward, I was part of this big innovative turnover of moving to team-based, getting people out of silos to a team-based environment. They ended up tripling their revenue and my stock options paid for grad school. That was my first lesson in, wow, equity can really pay off someday if the company's successful. And then my little bit of equity in Saildrone and my equity in Democracy Investments. We'll see where that leads.
This all makes me wonder about your learning to negotiate around compensation. What's sticking with me from the earlier part of the conversation was being in the military where everyone's paid the same. I'd never actually thought about that. You made your way out into the finance world. You had these stock options, which became valuable. So that was a great crash course in how equity worked. How do you think about equity today? And how do you think about negotiating equity today?
I think it goes back to our conversation around risk. You have to look at the big picture. Do you believe this company will meet its vision and by when will it? You don't want to be insisting on a huge day-to-day salary because that's not going to help the company get off the ground. You have to be willing to go to an environment where day-to-day you have a more modest salary, but you know when things grow, the payoff will happen with the equity. But you have to really look under the hood and know that success is in the future. That's really important. And I can say I had no idea when I went to SCI that that would happen. I came in very naive, but was lucky to be part of a wave of incredible innovations. One of them was, at the time, one of the most innovative companies in the space.
Makes me think of the conversation last night where some folks were lamenting about how it's hard to find that job interest fit when you can really be part of something where you buy into that vision and you align yourself with the vision of the business. Great things can happen, but it's not always easy to find that fit. Glad you were able to do that. Tell us, what's your next money conversation going to be and who's it going to be with?
Myself, and I'm really grateful to both of you for bringing it front of mind. I really only think about it at tax season and once a month when I pay my bills, I kind of evaluate everything. I'm sure there's more I could be doing. What is your advice to me as a later in life entrepreneur going back to the startup world, et cetera? And I feel like I'm doing things in the wrong order. I'm having so much fun. Maybe I'm growing younger.
Getting rid of the word wrong is probably the place to start because we all need to just find where we are in the moment. Always thinking through the vision. What is the grand plan? What is the purpose of the wealth that you've created, that you're creating, and then working backwards from that vision? Certainly looking at your personal finances on a regular basis helps in tracking how they grow, but really making the connection between where the personal finances are and where your vision is for what you want in your life outside of your career and also including your career. So that's a very big picture answer for you.
I think it's great advice. Don't let it control you. Julie, I'm trying to get more organized just so I get that sense of relief. I'm in control. I'm a good planner. I feel irresponsible when I'm not. I have empathy with some of the areas you might want to be focusing on.
I love that you're talking about money with your daughters and that you guys are open about it. And I think that's wonderful. That's going to serve them well and it will serve you well too, because whenever we talk about money, these things come up and we have new ideas that we can take action on.
I think someday they'll be advising me.
Good. That means their financial literacy will excel. Tell us, where is the best place for listeners to find you?
On LinkedIn.
It's been a real treat for me, for knowing you all these years, to hear your story. Sandy's right. I learned some incredible things. I knew a lot of the incredible parts. Thank you for joining us on Money Tales.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening, and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspiriant. Go to aspiriant.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspiriant.com. See you next time.